Okay, here's some of the newspapers from France and Spain. The reaction to PSG making it to the final. L'Equipe saying total pleasure. As the champions go through. Mundo say blue and red final. And as for sport, it is another final for Lucho. Let's get word from Luis Enrique before we get into it.
Mais on a montré, comme d'habitude, quel type d'équipe nous sommes, quel type de joueurs nous avons. C'est incroyable, on est dans la deuxième finale de Champions League consécutive. Ça représente le niveau qu'il y a à cette équipe, le niveau qui ont les joueurs, le niveau qui ont les supporters, c'est le club. Et on est très contents. Je peux apprécier, pour moi, Bayern de Munich, c'est à notre hauteur, c'est à notre niveau. Ils ont montré ça. Arsenal, c'est l'une des meilleures équipes cette saison. Ce qu'on a fait pendant toute la saison, c'est incroyable. Ils sont en train de disputer encore la Premier League et ils sont dans la finale. Et c'est une chose qu'il faut valoriser. Mais j'ai tellement confiance dans mon équipe que je pense que c'est important de valoriser.
Reese and Ale still with us. Don Hutchison joining us now as well. But let me start with you, Ale. PSG now proving that they are the best team over the past 2 seasons in Europe.
Yeah, and I think what's most impressive about this team is that often when we are forecasting what's going to happen in Champions League, and particularly this season, we would have expected PSG to be in the latter stages of the competition, but I don't know that we would have expected them to go through the same pattern that they did last season, in which they were not great in the group phase. They did not finish in the top 8 in the group phase, or the league phase as it's called, and yet it's so impressive to see them building up the momentum in the same manner in which they did last season. And they get better, and they get better, and they get better. And you feel the momentum happening, you feel the productivity, and you feel that the level of play is improving, and it's improving across all lines on the field. And you're also seeing a team, unlike, say, for example, Real Madrid, that knows who is the boss, who is making the decisions, who's holding the players accountable. We heard from Ousmane Dembele last week when he was talking about if he doesn't run, he's going to be on the bench. We have seen Kavicha Kvaratskhelia being sat on the bench earlier this season because he wasn't doing what Luis Enrique was asking him to do. And these are 2 of their best players being held accountable by Luis Enrique. You see all of that show up on the field, and so when you hold players that have this sort of talent, you hold them accountable, and they work as a group, and they work together, this is what you get. PSG dominant they can be, and it's so very impressive to once again see them in the final, and they go into the final as the favorites for me to win it.
Yeah, and like Ale said, Luis, just getting better and better as the season's gone on, which we saw last season with them as well, getting hot right now at just the right time, which from Luis Enrique is a skill in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they found a way of having the peak of the season right at the right time. Arriving into March, you can see the players are in the perfect condition. All of them, of 90% of the players, are ready to fight. And I was checking some of the numbers through the season, how Luis Enrique has been rotating, how many minutes they have been involved, and most of the players, they didn't even get to the 1,000 minutes. So the rotation has been working. They managed to rest players during the season, not getting them involved into the league, fighting for the league, but understanding that rotation is so important. So now they are arriving in the best form of the season, because they didn't have time also in pre-season to have a good one, to get ready for a long one. They were involved in that Club World Cup International. I cannot remember how it's called, but that they didn't even have the rest. So they knew that during the season you need to give that opportunity to the players to rest. So they were not involved in many of the games during the season. That's why Kvaratskhelia was rested many times. Barcola was switching with the way. Dembele exactly the same, with a small injury during the season, but fresh in the last part. So in the end, they found a way of doing it. Some of the teams, they just managed to continue going on and on and on. And when this matter, and I think we talked about this many times, February, March is the right moment in the season. If you don't arrive with enough energy after a long season, you're going to have that low, and then you're going to be out of every single competition. So I think they managed to do it once again so well. And again, as Ali said, I think they are favorites to win the Champions League once again.
I will double down on everything that everybody said. The amazing thing in looking at PSG and their progression during the last 2 seasons is how much they've improved. Not just that they've improved and gotten better as the season's gone on. We've been able to say that about teams in the past. First comes to mind, Manchester City, last couple of years apart. We've always sung their praises about how they've been able to finish seasons off, how they've been able to run down whoever is top of the Premier League table. But their improvement from first half of the season to second half is nothing like the improvement that we've seen from PSG in the 2 halves of the season. You could make the argument that they were just about average, a little bit more first half of the season. Second half of the season, they have just gotten better and better to the point there that it is beyond any argument who's the best team on the planet. And now we're talking about this team in relation to some of the best club teams that we've seen. Looking to repeat as champions, as Champions League winners, only the great Madrid have done, and now all of a sudden they're writing themselves into that conversation. A team that just about got out of the league phase. That is down to Luis Enrique, how he's managed this team, and how these players have stepped up to those challenges, particularly later on.
Yeah, and it's Arsenal now, Don, standing in the way of another Champions League trophy for PSG. Do Arteta's men pose a unique threat in any way to this PSG team?
In their own way. I mean, just adding something to what the guys were saying, I was watching the game live last night, and it was bizarre that I was watching Safanov in goal. And he kicked the ball down PSG's left-hand side, out to play for a throw-in every single time. And it was bugging me thinking, how can the goalkeeper not kick a ball straight and keep it on the island? Since I read the newspapers and the articles and seen it online, apparently it was a tactic to get PSG's players on the left-hand side of their pitch to stop Elise from building up. So I had loads of numbers in and around him. So little in-game management and in-game tactics from Luis Enrique, small things, but things that make a difference on top of having fantastic players. But Arsenal have got to approach this game, and they've got to play it their way. They've got to play it the English way. They've got to play it the Arsenal way. They cannot get sucked into a game of football because they'll lose it every single time. They're going to have to be strong. They're going to have to show the best version of themselves. Set plays could be really important for them. They've got to muscle up in every area. They've got to fight tooth and nail for every inch, and that's what Arteta has to do. I don't think he can go into this game, which we've been talking about Arsenal lately, being free and the shackles off and go and play your football and go and entertain. That's the last thing I would imagine his instructions are going into a Champions League final against PSG.
Do you see this being really physical battle, Stevie?
Absolutely. Arsenal have to make it that. You know, as much as we talk about the running that PSG's players did for the team and for themselves, Arsenal have to put the pressure on them and force them into making mistakes at the back. And then you have to trust your defence. Any other way, then I think they put themselves in trouble. They certainly can't sit tight and let PSG come at them. I mean, that front three is absolutely scary. You know, Arsenal have to do, in my opinion, what PSG did against Bayern. If they can get themselves ahead and then they can make a statement and keep things tight, higher up the field, not sitting at the top of their own box, and then they can go and emulate what PSG did to Bayern. But yeah, I'm with Don. They have to go and do it their way.
Seeing as though we do have Bundesliga Ale on, from Barcelona, albeit, let's talk a little bit about Bayern if we can, Ale. Will they be having any regrets about the semi-final? Will they be looking back at anything and wish they'd done it differently?
Since you referenced Bundesliga, I would just answer that question by saying, yeah! Yes, they will have all sorts of issues with not necessarily their performance, because in watching Bayern Munich playing against PSG, you quickly recognize, yeah, these are the two best teams in Europe. But I think there are moments in which Bayern Munich and Vincent Kompany will look back and say, good Lord. When the match got out of control in the first leg, when it became 5-2 so very quickly, in those moments you would want a team of this caliber to be able to slow down the play, to not get in that back and forth with PSG, sometimes to hang on to the ball and actually have control of the possession of the ball and not just expose your center backs and your outside backs to 1v1 situations against some of the most dynamic players in the world. And Bayern Munich were unable to recognize that in the first leg. Look, you give up 5 goals in a semifinals of Champions League, more than likely you're going to lose. Now, to their credit, they showed that they had enough to come back and make it competitive, make it 5-4, and give themselves an opportunity at home. But I don't think it's a secret that Bayern Munich has been struggling defensively over the last month. Certainly struggled defensively against PSG, struggled defensively against Heidenheim, struggled defensively against Mainz, and those things are going to show up, and they showed up in the worst time possible. And of course, PSG took advantage of that. So for Bayern Munich, I think there will be some regret in the sense that we were right there. We were very close. And had we taken care of some of the smaller details in the game that make all the difference, especially against a team of the quality of PSG, we may just be going to the final. They did not, and now they focus on, they won the Bundesliga, Pokal, they're looking ahead to that final, and then beyond that, they'll probably look back to this Champions League as what might have been or what could have been.
And of course, let's lean on your experience of Atleti now, if we can, Luis, given the fact that they were the other team that were eliminated. Are we seeing their ceiling, the way that this team's built, that they'll be 3rd or 4th in La Liga each year and have a deep run in the Champions League, but ultimately be knocked out by a better team?
Yeah, and it's been the life of Atletico de Madrid supporter for the past 12, 15 years or so. A team that has been, I was reading that they took, I think, 1 trophy in the last 10 years. It's 2016 until today. They only won 1 Copa del Rey, and that was about it. And that's something that, even though that this year they managed to get into the semi-final of the Champions League, that's something that no Barcelona did or no many big teams did. But definitely something that for the supporters of Atletico Madrid, they are not anymore. Is not anymore enough. Atletico Madrid was built to do something else. I think that they decided to throw away the league quite a long time ago, and now they try to fight to get in the 3rd position. But I think Simeone was very clear the other day when he was saying, but it's not enough. The supporters and the club wants to win things. In the end, is what it's all about. So I think that they will regret how they played that game. I think they could have done a little bit more. We saw Atletico Madrid a little bit afraid or a little bit hanging at the back, not trying to throw. Because when you arrive to that stage where it's only about 1 game, you have to go with everything. And I think that if they look back to that game, they will miss a few things that up front. We didn't see anything from Griezmann, from Julian Alvarez, from Simeone, from no one else, not even the players who came out in the bench. So a pity that Atletico Madrid is not once again in the Champions League final, but Atletico Madrid needs to think about the future in trying to change what it is. The drama of Atletico Madrid in the past few years is that to arrive there, almost there, 3rd position, 4th position, but never to grab a trophy.